My name is Whitney Soule. I'm the Dean of Admission and Student Aid at Bowdoin, and I want to say congratulations, huge congratulations to all you students who've been admitted. We have so much fun in the admission office reading your applications, and making the decisions about who to admit is really an opportunity for us to think about building this community very specifically, person by person. And so we know who you are. We were really excited to admit you. We're really hoping you're going to be part of the class of 2024 if you're still deciding. And I'm really excited for tonight's live cast because it's going to be an opportunity for you, even if you already know you're coming to Bowdoin and you've already committed to do that, or if you are here to find out more while you're making a decision. You have 4 students and 2 alumni who are here tonight to answer all the questions that you have. So we're going to get right to the questions, and I'm going to just do one housekeeping thing first. We do have someone helping us tonight with closed captioning. So if you're not already seeing that happen at the bottom of your screen and you'd like to turn that on and have closed captioning happen for you, what you'll want to do is take your cursor to bring it down to the bottom of your screen, and you should see a little icon that says closed caption with an arrow up, and you can use that to turn on closed captioning to have that follow along with what we're saying this evening. So I'm going to give each of our panelists a chance to introduce themselves, a little bit about who they are and where they are right now, since we are all over the place, and then we will get to questions. So Moira, I'm going to have you start.
Good evening. I'm glad you're with us. My name is Moira Kelly. I'm the class of 1986. I live outside of Boston. I run an educational nonprofit in the Boston area. I went to Bowdoin, was a government and legal studies major, double major with English Lit, and then I went to law school. And every 4 years, I have an odd side job. I help produce the general election presidential debates. So that's kind of what I do.
Great, thank you. And Alex, I'm going to go to you next.
Hello, my name is Alex Ontogtokh. I am a rising senior. I am in Des Plaines, Illinois right now, which is right outside of Chicago. Like Moira, I'm a government major with a history minor. And some things I do on campus, I'm involved with the college house system a lot. So I lived in a college house, I was an officer, and next year I will be a house proctor. And so lots of exposure to college houses. I'm also a tour guide, and so those are just a couple things about me.
Great, thank you. And Nora, your turn.
Hi, I'm Nora. I'm a current sophomore, and I'm currently in Waterville, Maine. I'm a recently declared history Asian studies double major with an Arabic minor. On campus, I'm a tour guide with the admissions office. I'm a writer for the Bowdoin Review. I've led an orientation trip with the McKean Center, which was probably one of my favorite things I've done at Bowdoin. And I spent the year on campus living in Baxter House, which is one of the social houses. Yeah, so those are a few things I'm involved in.
Great, thank you. And Matt, you're up next.
Hey everyone, my name is Matt Ramos. I'm in Houston, Texas right now. Currently I work for Chevron. I'm a geologist. Bowdoin class of 2012, and after Bowdoin I went to grad school, did a master's in civil engineering at Tufts, and then my PhD in geology at the University of Texas. I was on the alumni council for Bowdoin, and now I'm what's called a fund director. So pretty active on campus, even after graduating 8 years ago.
Great, thank you. And Praise.
Hi everyone, my name is Praise. I am from Minnesota, but I am actually still here, Brunswick, Maine, literally right up the street from Bowdoin at this point. I study sociology and education, and on campus, some of the big things I was involved in is the McKean Center. I help run the whole orientation program. First year, I also was a proctor, so love to talk about residential life. I studied abroad in Rome last year, which, oh my gosh, it's crazy, that's a year ago. So I'd love to talk about that as well. And I lead a club called Next Steps, which partners with Brunswick High School students and teaches them about the college application process.
Great, thanks, Praise. And Manlio. Oh, you're on mute.
Hi everyone, my name is Manlio. I'm a current senior. I'm from Southern California, a small town in the Mojave Desert. But right now I am hanging out in New Gloucester, Maine. On campus, I'm involved with rowing. That was a big part of my senior year. I also am a teaching assistant with the Earth and Oceanographic Science department. I've done 3 summers of research with that department too. I, like Matt, would classify myself as a geologist, so any questions about that, throw them my way. Love talking about research, love talking about anything and everything related to earth science.
Great. We have a lot of questions that were submitted in advance, and then we also have students who are submitting questions live to us right now. And I'm just going to move this where I can see these also. And I want to come back to something that 2 of you talked about as it relates to the college houses. I think both Alex and Nora were talking about those. And a lot of students may not know exactly what you mean about the college houses on campus. And I know that there are a number of questions related to housing generally. So I'm going to ask Alex to talk about the college house experience that you've had, and also Nora for you. And then if there's somebody else who wants to talk about what the first year housing experience is like, we can move to that person after. But I think we can get a good roundabout on housing options in the college houses specifically. So Alex, why don't you start?
Right. So when I was a first year, I was a part of Reed House as an affiliate. And so essentially when you come as a first year, you are automatically part of the system. And so there are 9 houses, and by being a part of a house, you have full access and privileges to the houses. So if you want to use their kitchen, if you just want to study in their common spaces, feel free to do all that. And so I was part of Reed House, and I really felt connected to that house. And so when I was a rising sophomore, I applied to a college house and I got into Reed, and I was super excited. And living in Reed was life-changing. I developed so much leadership skills. Being an officer, learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about how to lead and, organize events and whatnot. And it was a really fun experience. And then this year I am a college house intern, and so I help more broadly with all the houses and residential life and programming for all the houses. And so I want to go further and see what else I can do with the college houses. And so next year I will be a house proctor, and it's really exciting because I know the 31 students that I'm going to be living with, and they're super excited. Each Sundays we actually do Zoom meetings because they want to get to know each other even more. And so this Sunday, again, we're going to be splitting up into smaller groups to get to know each other. And so it just shows that students really want to, invest in the college house system to get to know one another. And if you saw the Instagram story yesterday, they're super excited to get to know you as well. And so it's just an awesome experience, and I haven't truly enjoyed my time.
Thank you. And I would just want to make the clear point that the college house system is not a Greek system. It is an organized living environment. Primarily, sophomores live in the college houses. Most students on campus live on campus and do not live in the college houses. So the college houses are unique in that they're a smaller group of people living together in houses owned by the college that have this responsibility for social planning and also being connected to the first year dorm. So I just want to make that clear because we get asked, probably other questions might come in later about, is there Greek life on campus? So there are no fraternities, but we do have the college houses as a social planning opportunity. So Nora, do you want to talk about your experience?
Yeah, so as a current college house member, despite not physically living in the house anymore, for me, it's really helped to shape my Bowdoin experience living in a college house, and it's given me a huge sense of community because as a college house member, I remember when I applied last year and I got accepted, everyone was putting together a spreadsheet with all the kids in my grade who were going to live in the house, and I didn't recognize any of the names. And I was really nervous because it was 30 people or so that I had never met before, but were in my year. And throughout the course of the year, I've gotten to know these people, and just through little interactions, I feel like it's really given me a great community. But more so than just the people who live in the house, the college houses are meant to be a space also that welcomes other members of the community, specifically first years. And so I know that I've met a lot of first years through the college house system because they've come to events that we've thrown. One example of an event that I spearheaded was pancakes and poetry. Mm-hmm. So it was a Sunday morning around brunch time, and we got supplies to make pancakes. And then the idea was that if people liked a poem, they could come and read a poem. And kids in the house showed up, and some first years showed up, some upperclassmen came. And it was really cool because it was just kind of a relaxed way to get to know other people at Bowdoin who are interested in things like eating pancakes or listening to or reading poetry. So I think that's just one example of how the college house system has really helped me to broaden my horizons and meet more people.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And to Moira and Matt, I'm going to throw this one to you. what is something about your Bowdoin experience that you think influences your professional experience now, that you can actually connect the dots of something really important in your time as a student to your professional work?
I can go first. I would say how research-based the classes were. So I think I forgot to mention I was a geology and physics interdisciplinary major at Bowdoin, and all of our geology classes, it's now Earth and Oceanographic Sciences, were very field-based. So we were always having labs out throughout Maine, doing experiments outside, and really just trying to understand Maine and the natural environment. And that just made me fall in love with both research, science, and the earth. Really just put me in a whole different place than I expected to be, and really made me think about geology as a long-term career. And I did. I just finished my PhD in geology, and I'm currently a professional geologist. So I think having the ability to really do research on campus and have it be part of your classes was really unique. I don't hear that from many people, and I think Bowdoin, really prioritizes getting that hands-on experience.
Yeah, and I want to stay with you for a moment because another question came in that's different but related to what you're talking about right now before we go to Moira. And it's about whether or not you felt prepared for your engineering graduate degree, having had your undergraduate degree at Bowdoin as a liberal arts college.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was a little intimidated at first because in grad school, or you go to grad school for engineering, you're surrounded by engineers. So I didn't necessarily have that formal background that they had, but realized that I was adequately prepared in terms of the earth science, and I had taken enough math to be able to hold my own in that area. So I actually felt a lot better prepared than them because they were taught to think in a certain way that was very strict engineering. There's a right answer, and you can find it if you try hard enough. Versus at Bowdoin, you're kind of taught to think outside the box, and maybe the answer is a little bit open-ended, and you have to dig deeper or collect more data in order to figure something out. So I think that helped me a lot in grad school as an engineer. I did the PhD in geology just because that was my passion, and I think that was the best thing I could have done.
Yeah, thank you. And Moira, for you, your Bowdoin experience that connects to what you do now.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm not even sure where to start. I do a lot of writing in the work that I do. I do a lot of public speaking. When I was at Bowdoin, I was the news director of the radio station, and I wrote for the Orient, the college paper, and I do writing of that type now. I do interview. I'm actually running a webinar with somebody tomorrow. I was lucky enough that I traveled a fair bit when I was at Bowdoin, and so I've been able to go do work in India and in Europe and a variety of other places, and I feel very comfortable wherever I land, knowing probably that people are different on some level, but there's probably more commonality than anything else. And I guess one of the things for me when I was at Bowdoin, I tried a lot of things and got involved in a lot of things, and I felt like I could constantly be engaged on some level of exploring, and I think that served me well because now I get asked to do lots of projects with people outside of what you might consider my job core, and if it sounds like an interesting project to work on for community service or the common good or an educational program or at another university, I just feel comfortable going for it, and that I'll work it out somehow, even if I'm not an expert in it. And I think I learned to do that at Bowdoin because I was allowed to do that, encouraged to do that, and I think it has ultimately made my life much richer because I was given those opportunities.
Great, thank you. This is a really good question. And probably everybody's going to want to answer it, but I'm going to start with praise. Why did you choose Bowdoin? Would you choose it again? And if you would choose it again, would it be for different reasons than the ones you had when you chose it the first time?
That's a great question. So like I said, I'm from Minnesota, and to be honest, I had no real conception of college. I'm a first generation student, so I didn't really know what liberal arts colleges meant. I knew that it was a better college, but I didn't know what that all meant. So I wound up finding about Bowdoin through a program called Questbridge, and through Questbridge, I met one of the admissions counselors. Sorry, I don't know if you saw that flicker. My connection is iffy, but I met one of the admissions counselors during a summit that Questbridge had, and I really liked her. So I was like, I want to know Bowdoin. I ended up doing a flying program there and absolutely fell in love. It was beautiful. Everyone was super nice. The environment was really welcoming and friendly, and I couldn't help but shake or have this gut feeling that, okay, I don't know what Maine or know much about Maine, but something is special is happening here. And as I continued looking at other colleges, I kept subconsciously comparing everything back to Bowdoin, and I tried hard not to do that because I wanted to be fair or whatever, but in reality I knew where I wanted to be. And ultimately, when it came down to actually choosing a college, it was no brainer that Bowdoin was the one. Would I choose Bowdoin for the reasons I chose it then? I think I chose it for the people. I think that was a bit more, probably a little bit of a part of the reason why I chose it, and I'm glad because that's the reason why I love Bowdoin so much is the people. So I think yes, but also I think I will add to that. I would look at the connections and the network, because I think that as a senior now graduating, the Bowdoin connection has tremendously helped me so much. So I would definitely prioritize that as well.
Great. Manlio, I'm going to let you take a shot at that same question.
Oh, I would love to. So similar to Praise, I am a first generation college student. So really this whole idea of college was so foreign to me. I pretty much did the college process on my own. My parents were out of touch with it. I was spearheading all of my searches. I was spearheading all of my application writing and even the financial aid aspect of it all. So it was very stressful and very overwhelming, but I applied to the Explore Bowdoin 1 program very much on a whim, knew that Bowdoin was a good school, whatever that meant to me at the time. I ended up getting in, and I vividly remember hopping out of the van, walking towards Moulton Union and going downstairs into the dining hall and just being totally blown away by the Lightroom dining hall area and thinking to myself, this is college. This is the feeling that I never thought I would have ever, but for some reason it's palpable. It's something that was in the smell of the food. It was something in the chatter of everyone sitting down at the tables eating their dinner with their friends, and sort of having that bar be set so high within the first few moments was so crazy. And every single interaction, every single experience kept on raising that bar. So when I think back to my original reasons for choosing Bowdoin, now that I'm a soon-to-be graduated senior, I think I was very much compelled by the place and the people and sort of how the college was fit in the state of Maine. It was really important for me to find a place that was very much connected to the town, very much connected to the state, and I thought that Bowdoin, from what people were sharing from their anecdotes, very much fulfilled that. And I think if I had to choose Bowdoin again, I would very much choose it for those same reasons. Over the time that I've spent involving myself in things on campus, I've just gotten to meet so many people, and I've been lucky enough to be involved in so many different things, from research to admissions to even alumni relations and development. So kind of all over the board. And I don't think that would have been possible if I didn't have that real immersive experience when I first got to campus.
I'm going to keep you for a moment because there's a question here that I know a lot of people want answered, and you may be the only person who can answer it. Although, Matt, did you come to Bowdoin from Texas? No. Okay.
The question I came from Boston area.
Okay. How do you cope with coming to the cold? And since Alex is from Chicago and Praise is from Minnesota and Nora's from Maine, I'm looking to you, Manlio.
Yes. Oh my. So I am from the desert in Southern California. So I look outside my bedroom window and I see dirt, I see tumbleweeds, and I see a blue sky with like sunshine all year round. It's that every single time there'd be rain, I'd like go outside and just like go crazy. It would happen a few times a year. And so the thought of coming to Maine was very much this like adrenaline filled dream. I had wanted to experience seasons. I'd never seen fall foliage. I wanted to see like a real snowstorm. And so I think my romanticism of the whole season experience made the transition a lot easier. I think another thing that really made the first change of season memorable was actually going to LL Bean and shopping for a pair of bean boots and a jacket with my pre-major advisor. His family took me out on this trip to just get the bare essentials. And I think having that sort of camaraderie within the first few months of getting to a new place and a new state, new climate, really showed me that like, yeah, I could do this. And since then I've become BFFs with my weather app. Every single day it's something different. You know, you just have to get used to checking ahead of time and very much checking before you leave your door, because 1 minute it could be sunshine, the next minute it could be like pouring rain. But fully embraced the switch from California to Maine.
Good. Thank you for answering that. I want to head back to our alumni for a minute. Just to have you reflect for a moment on, now that you're away from Bowdoin and fully immersed into your adult lives and careers, what network or connections do you feel you have with the college that are meaningful for you in your life now, when you sort of think about the tether, if you feel you have one, from life as a student to your adult life going forward?
I'll answer. I just before this call actually was on a board of trustees meeting, and two of my board members are from Bowdoin, and I reach out to Bowdoin people on a regular basis, interestingly enough, whether I know them or not. Just if I need to get an answer, an expert, I just track one down. And what's fabulous about it is I just say, hey, I went to Bowdoin, would you answer my phone call or return my email? And they almost always do. I'll tell you, I was clerking one summer, and I was actually in Washington, D.C., and I was preparing some students for one of the House subcommittees. And after I got done that work, I had somebody rush up to me and offer me a job. But before he did, he said, where did you go to college? And I said, I went to Bowdoin. He said, so did I. And he offered me a job right then, you know, and Bowdoin's a funny place. There are just people everywhere. And I think part of it, because the place is on the smaller side, that there's a camaraderie about it, so that when you meet people out there, it's kind of like, you just kind of know, it's like you almost kind of like, whether you do it actually high five them, there's like a little polar bear thing going on. And it's actually real. Like, I'm not making this up. I mean, because I have to reach out to experts a lot, and thankfully Bowdoin has a lot of them. And the network piece is really pretty important, and people are nice about it. So
That's great. Thanks, Matt. What about from your point of view?
I mean, I definitely echo what Moira was talking about in terms of that special connection between alumni. I feel like I could be in the most random place, but if I see someone wearing a Bowdoin sweater, I'll most likely walk up to them and say, hey, did you go to Bowdoin? And even if they didn't, you know, someone they know did, and then we have this little conversation. And I just think it's very different from pretty much any other school or university that I've heard of. And all my friends think I'm a little crazy because I'm so willing to talk to strangers as long as they're wearing something Bowdoin. And I think Bowdoin has definitely had a lot of impact on where I am now, and is definitely connected. I do a lot of work with the alumni groups in Texas, helped start a group in Austin, and then when I moved to Houston, kind of got pretty involved in running that. Basically, we just gather all the polar bears, get together, have a good time, and it's nothing more than that. It's really just an awesome opportunity to we call it networking as adults, but you really just get together and chat and get to know each other, and it's just awesome connecting with Bowdoin people from everywhere. Another impact Bowdoin has had on me, I mean, my fiance is a Bowdoin grad of 11. yeah, we just got engaged over this coronavirus quarantine, so some silver lining of that. So I have another polar bear hanging around all the time, which is awesome. And just, having that special connection with someone and being able to share that little craziness that we all have about Bowdoin. I think it just makes it such a unique place that it has that impact on pretty much every alum I've met.
Yeah, and I would just add too that I had a chance to see Matt in Houston with his alumni group maybe a year ago, I think, in the fall. And everybody was gathered at somebody's house, and it was a huge range of age and graduating years. So if you're thinking about like what would that be like, I witnessed this group together in Houston that was it was really wonderful networking. It was people at all different parts of their career life after graduating. Some recently graduated, and some who were near retiring. And that piece that they were all talking about was Bowdoin was what had them in the conversation, and they were talking about all these other really interesting things. There's two questions that I'm going to push together here as a compound question, and I imagine there's more than one of you who's going to want to answer it. If everybody answers it, it might be the last question we get to for the whole night, so I don't want to do that. But the question, let's see, one of them is, what were the biggest challenges in the freshman year? And then another one is, what's a resource that you're thankful to have been able to use on campus? And I'm not putting them together because you can only answer if you used a resource when something was challenging in your first year, but to sort of think about the bumps of challenges that may have been in the first year or otherwise that there were resources here that helped with that might be a good combo question. Is there anybody who'd like to take that one on?
Can I start that?
Sure.
So I know I'm a little bit far out, but definitely remember the struggles. When I went to Bowdoin, similar to some of the other folks, first gen student, wasn't super prepared academically, and I definitely had a hard time academically adjusting to Bowdoin. I got through it, but not without a lot of resources at Bowdoin. The Baldwin Center for Learning and Teaching was huge for me. They offer academic mentors, basically just help you get your life together. And someone like me who just didn't even know where to start, they were like, all right, we'll buy a planner and let's fill out your planner, put your homework in it. And I can't tell you how much of an impact that had on my life. Just having someone to help me start those basic things and then kind of cheer you on through the process of just getting your life together. And it was just monumental. It really was. And by the time I was graduating, I was a senior and I became a mentor in that same program. So it's just really cool that Bowdoin has that kind of peer-to-peer type of resource where, there's very little interaction with any real adults, and they just kind of say, all right, here's someone who struggled too. And now they're a resource for you because they've been through it and they understand what it takes to get through it. And now you can help somebody else. So I think that was just really huge for me.
Yeah. Is there anything else anybody would want to add? Praise, did you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in my first year, I struggled saying no, and something that I progressively worked on, but still have problems with. And so I took on way more than I could handle and was not sleeping well, was staying up at weird times and going to sleep at weird times, and just really struggling to create balance with my schedule, and also feeling bad about saying, oh, I don't think I can do X, Y, and Z activity. And it came to the point where my first year advisor, who was in the government and legal studies department, pulled me aside and was like, hey, what's going on? And I was really scared to talk to someone and say, I'm struggling, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to get everything done. And he was like, you don't have to do that. It's okay. One, it's okay to ask for help. And then two, it's okay to say no to things, and to create balance and to make time for yourself in your schedule. And to me, that was like revolutionary, but it really helped guide me the rest of my 4 years at Bowdoin. And he still, even though I'm not a government and legal studies major at all, I'm still very close to this professor, because he really saw the lows. So yes, first year advisor.
Yeah, great, thanks. Did somebody else have a hand up? Yeah, Nora.
Yeah, I would love to speak on this topic because I think I've grown up on college campuses for essentially my whole life. My dad has worked in academia. And so I had a lot of expectations going into my first year about what college was going to be like. And I think that was my biggest struggle, was adapting to, this place that I had put college at in my mind, where I'd been working my whole life to achieve this because it's what I'd grown up seeing my whole life. And so I think, like, socially, it can be really hard to be away from home for the first time for some people. And being with so many new faces, I went to a small high school. There were only 90 people in my class. And so going to Bowdoin, even though it's small for a lot of people, for me, it was really big. I remember on the first day of orientation, everyone was out on the field doing some like icebreakers before leaving for orientation trips. And I looked around and I was like, this is more people than went to my high school. Like, this is crazy. And it just seemed like a lot of students. And so adjusting socially for me, I really depended on my first year proctor. And so on the first year floors, everyone has a proctor that will live on your floor with units and upperclassmen. My proctor was a senior, and she would just come in and check in my room all the time, and she would leave her door open. I was open to text her if I was having any issues. And it was really great to have someone who I trusted, who was a student, and I can confide in, because she was older and she understood some of the struggles I was going through. But I didn't feel like I had to talk about that with other first years when I was still trying to figure out who I was, and everyone was dealing with these same adjustments. And so I would say that res life really helped me through my first year. And I'm really thankful for my first year proctor and RA.
Those are great answers. I'm going to throw a light one out there that should be fun to answer. And what are the local hangouts? How far is Walmart, a mall, a movie theater, things to do? And so I know that even what's available now in Brunswick and the surrounding area looks different than when Matt was here and when Moira was here, but some things are probably still very much the same of how you have experienced off-campus activities, right? Whether they're shopping and going to movies or something like that, or whether it's just using the communities around us. So is there anybody who'd like to take a stab at that? All right, Manlio.
One of my favorite places to go is just a short little jaunt down Main Street. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this, Gelato Fiasco. What makes it particularly special for me is the number of times I've gone there equates to how well the staff knows me as a person, which is crazy. There was one period of 2 weeks where I found myself going there 7 times, not because I was like stressed out or anything, but simply because the gelato is fantastic. There's a seasonal rotation that I could just talk for hours about, but also the people that like interact with you and give you samples and try to coax you into trying and buying their favorite flavors. That just makes me feel so happy. And going to Bowdoin, it's of course a small school, and so sometimes you get trapped in only being around a certain number of people, only doing the same things. And so oftentimes I'll just walk down with one of my friends and have time to just talk to them, and also have time to just like be in a place that makes me feel happy. It makes me feel like I'm living this adult life, because sometimes at Bowdoin I forget about that. And I just think that the people there have made the past 2 years in particular just feel so solid. And I don't know, I love Gelato Fiasco. It's probably going to be like a brand that I'll always support just because of how they've made me feel personally.
Yeah, I'm going to join you in that, man. You and I are going to have to talk about our gelato habits.
Yes.
Offline. I'm also a frequent flyer, working hard to be their number one fan and earn my own flavor. Good. What are some other things that people do off campus just to do something different, or to take care of needs that you have where you need to go shopping? Alex?
Yeah, so my friends and I, we really love going to the Androscoggin Swinging Bridge. It's really beautiful. It's just like a nice place to, like, if you want to go on a walk or whatnot, seeing like the sunset from there and stuff, it's beautiful. And so it's just a great way if you like have a lot of homework or something to just like, if you want to go off campus and like walk around. It's like maybe a mile out from campus, but it's really beautiful. Definitely recommend it. It's adjacent to the main bridge, and so I don't know, just one of those beautiful places that like when I think of Brunswick, I always think of like that swinging bridge, and so awesome place.
Good. Anyone else? Yeah, praise.
One of the things I did this semester was work at Starbucks in Freeport, and there is like, I actually realized how many people, one, I like met so many people, and then two, I also met a lot of Bowdoin like polar bears who like live in Maine still. And so when they would see, I often wore like my sweatshirt that said Bowdoin on it, and so they're like, wait, you go to Bowdoin? And I was like, yeah, I'm a senior there. And so that always started a connection, and I've gotten so many people's numbers by just working there and starting up like connections and them coming in regularly to visit me when I was working. But outside of that, Freeport is also a really big hub that I personally enjoy. And I remember when I was here I stayed on campus for 2 summers, and Freeport is the place to be during the summers because they have a lot of like really cool like live music sessions and just like reading in the park and like all these things that happen like right outside like the LO being like, I don't know what the proper term is, but like there's a little square.
They call it a campus, like the LL Bean campus.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many people, like 4th of July, so many people are there watching the fireworks. Again, concerts, it's such a fun spot to be during the summer for sure. And not winter too.
Yeah, and I would just add to walking downtown, there's grocery within a half mile of here, and pharmacy and coffee shops and restaurants and clothing, and Walmart is about probably a 4-mile drive, Target a little bit further, and there is a little bus that goes around Brunswick. It's a bit of a stretch to think of it as active public transportation on a on a rapid schedule, but it does get you around to the shopping areas of Walmart or the movie theater or Target or some of the other areas if you don't have your own vehicle or a bike. Most places are easy to get to on a bike. And I will just say too that we have not all students, and well, first year students don't have cars on campus. Most students don't otherwise. Some do, but if you're here and need a car and don't have your own, we have Zip cars on campus, and so students can use that to get around. This was a question that I knew when we were getting ready, some of you were interested in answering. This goes to the question of sports on campus and what the culture is like if you are into club sports rather than varsity, or if you are not an athlete, what is your experience on campus? Is anybody who'd like to speak to that? Let's go with Nora and then Manlio.
Cool. Yeah, so going into Bowdoin, this was also one of my concerns because I knew that I'm not really an athlete, and I knew that club sports would kind of be out of my comfort zone, and I was worried about the varsity sports culture. But I find that a lot of my friends dabble in both, which is really fun. I have a lot of friends who are varsity athletes, but they also do things like write for the Bowdoin Harpoon, which is a satirical publication. And I personally have found my community in a bunch of different ways. Like I mentioned with the college house in residential life, I've really relied on that to give me a community of people my age that I could connect with and were going through similar things as me. But I also find that getting off campus and volunteering has given me a lot because it's allowed me to connect with students who are really interested in Bowdoin and what it means, but also getting to know people off campus is really cool. And so I'm a mentor in Harpswell, and through being a leader for this McKean Center program, I've gotten to know the social worker at the school really well, but I've also gotten to know some of the adults who work in the McKean Center. And I think that when I think of like the ideal Bowdoin student, I think of someone who's really willing to put themselves out there and try new things. And for me, that's what a lot of kids do, and that's what makes people successful. And so by pushing myself to do that and try new things and join different clubs and see what works for me, I've really found a bunch of different communities, and I think that's really special.
Great. Manlio.
Yeah, I like what Nora was just talking about of kind of like trying new things and putting yourself out there. For my first 3 years at Bowdoin, I did not play sport whatsoever. I had always thought about joining the cross country team. I was a huge runner in high school and was just running on my own a lot. But at the beginning of my senior year, I had to really just sit and think to myself of what's one experience that I've always wanted to have, but have not quite felt yet. And it was being on a sports team. And so I joined the crew team and had no exposure to the sport previously. I had been on the indoor rowing machine a few times, but slowly I just fell in love with the sport, with the people, with the coaches, and it turns out I'm pretty good at it. And so over the past few months, I've just been like really riding this train of being on a sports team. And it's given me a lot of fulfillment, and it's something that I'm definitely considering doing once I graduate and once I get into the real world of like continuing the sport and continuing to feel the passion and the excitement that I do have for it, even though I've only been doing it for just under 6 months. That being said, the 3 years that have kind of like led up to this decision have also been filled with such amazing experiences, from being in a college house to people on my first year floor. And those are all friends that I still have in my like close circle. And just the incorporation of this sports team allows me to bring like more people into my life and bring more friends and like continue building those relationships.
Great. This question is coming, Praise, you inspired a question about jobs on campus when you were talking about working at Starbucks, which is off campus, but it inspired somebody to ask about having jobs on campus. What are those like? And is it hard to balance having a job and school? And I'm also going to put this back to our alumni. If you had a job when you were on campus, if you remember what it was and what that was like as part of your experience, I'd welcome your input as well. So is there anybody who wants to talk about having a job on campus, how you get one, and what the balance is like? Praise.
Yeah, I think my last 2 years at Bowdoin, I've consistently had at least 6 or 7 jobs at one point. So always working has been a part of my life at Bowdoin, but I think you can get really strategic in terms of like what kind of job that you have. For me, I've had a lot of jobs just through admissions because I love the people, I love talking to students. I love being like talking about Bowdoin. So it's a job technically speaking, but in reality, it's more like just social hour and getting to talk to people about something that you enjoy doing. And then also, I think in terms of like balancing, I would say that generally, if you're working on campus specifically, people know that you also are a student, and that's very you can communicate that with your boss, advisor, whoever you need to, and they're really considerate about that, and they can plan your hours around that. And so I think those are like my 2 things. Like, it's really not hard. A lot of people do it. It's just like another extracurricular, and that you can definitely plan how many hours you work each week really easily.
Good. Is anybody else who wants to add in on the job conversation? Alex.
Yeah, I think to go expand on that, I think it's, yeah, like with jobs, a lot of the jobs you can get, they're things that you're interested in. So like similar to Praise, I do a lot with admissions, and it's really fun getting to like talk to prospective students and their families, and also get paid doing it. But also like other jobs include being the college house intern. Like I love that system, and like being able to organize different programs and being able to work with the different college houses, and that being considered a job. I think it's awesome because, like as Praise said, it is kind of like an extracurricular, and what it teaches you more than anything is time management. And like a lot of the jobs you'll have is very independent, and you'll have to know how much time to commit, and also realize you have like 4 classes and whatever's going on in your life. And so it's the best of both worlds. You learn a lot of real world skills, but then also you get to do things that interest you, and you get paid for it too, which is really awesome. Good.
Moira?
Yeah, I had a couple of jobs when I was at Bowdoin. So I was a proctor, and I also worked at the Upward Bound program, and I was also a first generation college student, and I was an Upward Bound student, and I worked there all the way through college, and I would say in a lot of ways there was working at Bowdoin. Those were some of my some really meaningful experiences. It was more than just a job. And one of the things that I was very lucky about is as I went from year to year, I was given increasingly, significantly more responsibility. So the work that I did was personally really meaningful, but it was also really good skill development that I took with me after I left Bowdoin. And in general, my experience was seeing other people is that there were loads of really good opportunities for jobs if you wanted them, that you could incorporate into your life in a way that wouldn't drive you crazy.
Yeah, and I would just say too, this wasn't exactly part of the question, but just people might be wondering if there are enough jobs on campus, and you sort of just touched on that a little bit, Moira, but there are definitely enough jobs on campus. The students who are receiving financial aid from the college have a job expectation built into their student aid. And that's about half of our students. And so about half of our students are working on campus, but half of our students are working on campus as part of their student aid package, but 75% of our students have jobs. So I just use that as an indicator of there are lots of jobs on campus, and some of them may be the only job you have and can employ you for 6 hours a week, and others may be an hour at a time per week, depending on what it is. So the variety of jobs, as you've heard from those who've answered already, is pretty broad, and definitely available to anybody who is looking to earn money. There are ways to do that on the campus, whether or not you are a student receiving aid from the college. I'm really mindful of time, and there are hundreds of questions here that are all really good. But there's one thing that I want to get at, that there's a question here about, is the rumor true that Bowdoin might be online in the fall? That I didn't know that there was a rumor, but I think that is a question that is out there about every school everywhere right now, whether it's a K through 12 school or it is a college, about what will it be like in the fall? Will it be back to normal, or will it be some alternative? And the answer is we don't know yet, because all of that depends on where we are with the virus and what that's requiring of all of us to be safe. So I don't know the answer to that. But what I would love to hear from, if the students are comfortable answering this, is what your experience is like. Does it still feel like Bowdoin to you to have had what you're experiencing now in the end of this term, which is not at all the Bowdoin experience that you've had prior to right now, and this was unplanned and sort of a decision that you all had to adapt to really quickly. Can you just describe a little bit about how that feels as a Bowdoin student, even though you are in a remote space right now? Nora.
Yeah, so one of the things I was really worried about when I found out that the semester was canceled was that I wasn't going to have the same type of connection with the kids in my class and my professors, but also the members of the social house I live in, because for me, that's really what makes Bowdoin special, is having that face-to-face contact with people all the time, and fostering those relationships. And I actually find that ever since Corona became a thing and school was canceled, well, not really canceled, but moved to remote, I feel like a lot of those connections have actually gotten stronger. And for my college house that I live in, we still have our weekly meetings every Sunday at 8:15. And if you look on the Bowdoin Instagram, you can see that some of the other college houses have been doing that too. And our attendance is great. We still get like all 32 of us there, which is really awesome. But my professors have also worked to really make sure that this experience is still academically fulfilling for us. And so they've done a lot of different things to keep conversation. I'm a humanities gal, so I really revolve around classes that are conversation and discussion based. And Zoom has been great. Like, we've been able to keep those discussions, and it doesn't feel that different, to be honest. I'm just sitting in my room instead of in a classroom. And I think being able to keep those relationships and still talk with my professors, attend office hours over Zoom, see kids that I'm used to seeing every day in class, just maybe on a screen, it's great, because I feel like those connections are still really there, and I'm not lacking the things that I thought I would.
Great. Anybody else want to add in? Alex.
Yeah, as I mentioned, yeah, like my new house, they're doing Zoom calls every Sunday, and I think that's amazing, because one thing I was worried about was that, as a rising sophomore for my 31 kids, like not being able to meet each other until fall and like how awkward that might be. And so just setting up a Zoom call and then taking the initiative to be like, hey, could we do more of these like weekly, and then getting to like know each other in smaller groups, that just shows the community. And like the fact that so many of them volunteered to do to give their first year perspective and experiences despite knowing me for only a week is just amazing and speaks volumes as to how close and great community Bowdoin is. And so truly, I think, as Nora said, like this experience has made us closer. And even if we're not like in one physical place together, like definitely Zoom and other technological advancements are helping us maintain that community. And so again, like I think just that college house experience for me has really solidified that understanding of Bowdoin community. And you know, whatever happens, but at the same time, I think, you know, our community will always be there.
Good. Anyone else? Manlio.
I'd love to give the senior perspective. I know everyone that's watching, you're seniors in high school, and you're very much in the quasi-frustrated, quasi-confused state. And as a student who loves Bowdoin, who essentially like eats, sleeps, breathes Bowdoin, receiving the emails saying that living in-person classes were canceled was so hard to digest. It took me so many days to just come to terms with it all. And I found myself like bawling a number of times over the course of a week, just because of how much I loved Bowdoin and how much I loved my friends. And I think one of the things that makes this whole experience very special is, as Nora touched on, everyone getting closer and everyone forming such strong connections. The night before all of my friends left, we did this victory tour on campus where we walked around, socially distant, of course. We walked around different places on campus and took pictures and just like really embraced the place that we were in and the place that we had called home through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And as a senior, as I'm looking at my post-Bowdoin plans, I think there was a lot of frustration in sort of how things were going to be handled, but just talking to people, talking to administration, talking to staff members and faculty members, I've gotten a lot of help with really like situating myself as I'm planning to move to the next step for work. So it really just takes you being like vocal about the things that you are frustrated with and the things that you need help with. And the Bowdoin connection, the Bowdoin network will swoop you up and make sure that you're really cared for, which is something that like is so great in this whole situation.
That was great. It makes me love Bowdoin even more listening to you all describe it that way. We have just a couple minutes left, and I'm actually going, I was going to say give you a challenge, but I don't think it's going to be a challenge for any of you. Might be a challenge to come last in answering the question, but I would love for each of you, as sort of like a parting thought for our students, to see if there's a word or a couple of words that you would use to describe what you think the core of Bowdoin represents. And it may be that you end up choosing the same words as somebody else, which is fine. They don't all have to be different, but just for each of you to sort of get in your mind the core of what Bowdoin represents and means. And that might be really helpful for our students who are trying to imagine it, particularly students who are now in a position of trying to choose a college that they might have been planning a chance to visit if they hadn't already, and are now trying to make a decision without getting to visit it, and sort of what that feeling is that matters for all of you. Anybody who wants to start? All right, Matt.
I don't necessarily want to start, but I want to go before someone steals my answer.
People can repeat words, but go ahead.
No, I mean, I think it's definitely been the theme of a lot of our answers. I think community is huge and just makes Bowdoin such a special place. You know, within that, obviously, there's a lot that goes into community, but I think the overarching theme that makes me just feel the way I do about Bowdoin is community.
Thank you. Nora?
I have so many words that I wish I could.
You're an English major, right?
History, so a lot of words there too. But I think one of the things that's really distilling down to for me is belonging. And I feel like at Bowdoin, I've really found where I belong. And that's thanks to the people and the institution that has helped to make the place that makes me feel like I belong somewhere. And so I know there are a lot of people that, you know, when you're looking at colleges, you're like, will I belong here? Will I fit in? Is it going to be a welcoming space? And I feel like for me, that's what comes to mind is like home and belonging.
Great. Praise.
I would echo both of those, and in vein of not repeating, I would say growth. I think at Bowdoin, you can't go through this place 4 years and not come out changed, somehow better, in whatever aspect. And I think that comes through the people you meet. I think that comes through the challenging experiences that you may have. I think that comes in the classroom and a myriad other ways, but I'll stop there.
That's great. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Manlio.
I think I would summarize by saying passion. At the end of the day, you could live your Bowdoin life by just going to class. But as we've talked about with the things that we do and the things that we're choosing to do, every single thing that my friends have been doing, every single thing that I've done is because I want to do it and because I love it so much. As I said before, like I eat, sleep, breathe Bowdoin. So all the things that I choose to do, I throw myself into. And I'm just passionate about so many things and so many things that I've discovered because I've put myself into unique situations. And I think that translates to so many other people as well.
Great. Who are we missing? Alex.
I think a word that I'd use is like lifetime. You know, when you first arrive to Bowdoin, the first song you learn is the Raise Songs to Bowdoin. And, you know, Bowdoin from birth is a phrase that we all use. And I think it's very much true. You know, you are a polar bear from birth, but then coming here, you know, you have 4 amazing years. And I'm at that point where I'm, you know, about to be a senior, and you think about like, you're almost done with Bowdoin, but then you realize that like, as from like Moira and Matt, that, you know, your experience at Bowdoin is never ever finished, even once the 4 years are done. You know, there's an amazing alumni network, there's an amazing support system, and you know, seeing people just around the world with like Bowdoin sweaters and whatnot, you're gonna be naturally curious to ask them like, are you a Bowdoin student, or were you a Bowdoin student? And so I think, you know, lifetime is a great word to use, because you learn coming in that you are a polar bear from birth, but then also when you leave that it's not over, that it will never be over kind of thing. So yeah, that's my one word.
I like it.
I think I would say generosity. I think that Bowdoin is an unusually generous community. The people in it are, I will say that which I do, I spend a lot of time on college campuses and across the United States and in other countries. And yeah, I still keep on coming back to Bowdoin as being a really unusual place. And I think I became a more generous human being by going to Bowdoin. And I think that it is clear that the common good is really at the core of what this college is. And I am every day so thankful.
Yeah. Well, I'm so inspired by listening to all of you answer the questions tonight, and you know, especially recognizing that we're doing this as a Zoom live cast because we're all living through an extraordinarily traumatizing point in our history, right? That there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of unknown happening for all of us, and that this isn't how we would have planned for our students to finish their year, or for us to be greeting and trying to welcome students who we've just admitted. And yet in an alternative space that nobody was planning on, I'm so appreciative of our students and alumni who are willing to so freely talk about your experiences and to try to share that with our students. And I just want to say again, we're really excited about admitting you, and we put this class together on purpose with each of you in mind. And are really excited to have you join us. And I hope that the questions that were asked and answered tonight help you get to know Bowdoin a little better. And as I said, if Bowdoin was the place you already knew you wanted to go to and you've already committed, I hope this feels great to be getting to know your community. And if you're still deciding to get a glimpse of what your community would be like if you were to come here. I also want to just point out that our 4 students you see them on the Instagram, and so they're doing a great job answering questions and putting content there, but that might be a good place for you to pass a few questions as well that can be answered for everybody who's following on Instagram. We have a lot of good content still coming out in that space. I'll remind you that we have recordings of our live streams. They're getting posted to our admitted student page on the Bowdoin website, so you can look back at these, and if you missed the prior ones and want to review them, those are there. And also to run the commercial for next week, we have a Thursday evening live stream at 7, which is going to be with our financial aid staff and with 2 students who work in the student aid office. So that if you have questions about student aid, that is the night to do it. Each of the admission officers, student aid officers that you would see if you were to get on to the student aid site and see who is your assigned counselor based on your last name, they're all going to be on. So you would actually see and get to hear and ask questions of the person who you would have a relationship with if you were to come to college at Bowdoin and be a student aid recipient. So I encourage you to log on for that if you have questions. I will say that if you have specific questions about your student aid award, the live stream is not the time where they're able to answer the specific ones. I would encourage you to set up an appointment. They're ready to do appointments. They're doing it in the evening, during the day, and on the weekends to answer families' very specific questions. But if you're curious broadly about what the aid award means, or how you think about affording books where that shows up in your aid award, or what a student work expectation means, or anything like that, that'll be a great time to get to know those folks. And have a great evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panelists, and congratulations again to all our admits. We're really, really proud of you and excited that you might be part of our community. Good night, everyone.